My name's Gabriel Ondetti. I was born in New Jersey, in Princeton. No, I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey. My parents were immigrants from Argentina, and they got to the United States in 1960. I grew up, and my sister and me grew up, in a kind of a Hispanic family, but in a community that was largely non-Hispanic. So we had a kind of a different kind of experience as the children of immigrants, but in a largely non-immigrant community. And so I grew up in Princeton, and I went off to college at the University of Pennsylvania, and then started working for a while, and I worked after college. I was an English major in college, and I worked for a public relations firm in Manhattan for 2 years before I realized that that was not what I wanted to do. And I really felt at that point that I wanted to write, that I wanted to be a journalist. And so while I was at that public relations firm, I started taking a night class through New York University with a journalist from, I think at that time he was with the New York Daily News. But anyway, he helped me get a job in journalism, even though I had not even written for the school newspaper when I was in college. But I got a job at a daily newspaper in New Jersey called the Jersey Journal. It's based like right across the river from Manhattan. And I was a journalist for 2 years at that paper. And then I really got interested in writing about Latin America. Part of my job, not a big part, but part of my job at the Jersey Journal was reporting on Cuban anti-Castro politics in the United States, because we had a big Cuban population in our coverage area. And so I got interested in that, and I got interested in Latin American politics, and I decided that I wanted to be a correspondent for a journal, a newspaper or news service or something like that in Latin America. But I really needed to build my credentials as an expert on Latin America. And so I went to Georgetown University, and I did a 2-year master's in Latin American studies. And it was during that master's that I decided that actually what I really wanted to do was to pursue a PhD in political science. And so I moved along to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where I did a PhD in political science. And that kind of led me to the career that I have now. So I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do. I never had a clear vision. I went off to college without having a sense of what I was majoring in. I was undeclared for at least through my freshman year. I ended up majoring in English just because I love to read and I love to write. And I figured, well, I should be doing something. I should be majoring something that I like. I'll do better that way, and I'll enjoy it more if I'm doing something that I like. But I had no idea or no sense that I wanted to pursue a career in that area. And it's not clear what career English, prepares you for specifically. But so I did that, and even when I graduated college, I still didn't have a really good sense of what I wanted to do. A lot of my friends were doing business, and so I went into this public relations firm in Manhattan, where we did public relations for the pharmaceutical industry. But I was never cut out to be a business person, so that kind of got old pretty soon. It was interesting for a while, but I realized pretty quickly that that's not what I wanted to do. And so, as I mentioned earlier, little by little, I started to get interested in politics and studying politics. I was never really interested in participating in it. And I started to get interested in Latin America. And so that became my focus, and I decided to pursue a PhD. I still, sometimes I think about, well, how would it have been to pursue journalism instead as a career? And I don't know, but at Georgetown, I realized that I really liked the in-depth study of politics, and that I felt I could contribute to that. And journalism, I think, it's a definitely it's very interesting, but it's a different way of approaching things. I mean, it's less in depth. I think you need to have a certain personality that I wasn't sure if I had, and I really enjoyed the things that I was reading and studying at Georgetown, and so I decided to pursue a PhD and become a professor of political science, and that has proved, I think, to be a good decision. I'm happy with that decision. I'm very content with it. Could I have been a journalist and been happy with it? I don't know, but I chose this path, and I'm content with it. Well, my first job was scooping ice cream when I was about 15 years old. But my first real full time job was as a public relations executive for this firm called Wang Associates in Manhattan. And there were some aspects that I liked about it. I did a really interesting trip down to Colombia, South America with them, and I did some other things that were pretty interesting. But ultimately, I'm just not a public relations person. I'm more introverted and more focused on, thinking about things and writing things, and so that didn't work out for me. But I've evolved little by little, towards a intellectual, you know, more intellectual pursuits. So the journalism and then political science, and so that's how things have evolved. And as I mentioned, I mean, by the time by the time that I got to my PhD, I was pretty set on what I wanted to do. It took me a while to get there after college, a few years. But once I got into my PhD, I really didn't look back. And as I mentioned, I'm pretty comfortable that I made a good decision about my career choice. I listen to the exact same music now as when I was younger. My musical taste stopped developing in about the early 1990s. I listen to classic rock and roll. I like Creedence, Led Zeppelin, The Doors. I like some folk music like Dylan and Neil Young and Simon and Garfunkel. A little bit, on after I graduated from college, I think I started to get interested in reggae and ska and Jamaican ska. And at about that point, I just kind of stopped, looking for new stuff to like. So I'm stuck in my tastes from from the early 1990s back a number of decades, and I've been working on my son and trying to instill those same tastes in him. We'll see how successful I am. So after I finished my PhD, I had a couple of temporary jobs that were substituting for professors who were on sabbatical or on leave for one reason or another. And so I worked at Wesleyan College in Connecticut, and then I worked at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. But neither of those were positions that were open. The tenure track positions were not available, and so I was looking for jobs, and I ran across this one, and the place seemed agreeable to me, and the position seemed agreeable, and so I sent off I applied, sent off my CV, and I was invited to interview, and the rest is history. Uh, I, I'm someone who likes to cultivate interest in major global issues that face us as Americans and as citizens of the world. And so I see my job in part as to put in front of our students those issues and give them a basis for thinking about those issues, however they choose to think about it, but giving a factual and analytical basis for thinking about those issues. Our students here in political science, but more broadly across the university. And in particular, I'm a specialist in Latin America. And so I've tried to cultivate an interest in that region and be a resource for students who are interested in that region and faculty members as well who are interested in that region at the university. And part of that role in terms of instilling and cultivating that interest in international affairs is directing the Masters of International Affairs program, which I've directed since 2023, or excuse me, since 2018, and so that's been part of my role. I've also organized numerous talks and panels, discussions on different issues, and I think it's very important for political science as a department to play that role of prompting discussion of major issues that are facing the country that otherwise are often not discussed at Missouri State. I mean, we have this public affairs mission, but I'm not sure that we always entirely live up to it in terms of making sure that our university is engaging these key national and international issues. And so I think our department in particular should be taking the lead in identifying issues that are of great importance to the country and the world, and creating contexts in which they can be discussed knowledgeably, rationally. The MIA program is a 4-semester program that focuses on the two international subfields of political science: international relations and comparative politics. It also allows students to gain knowledge about specific regions of the world, like Latin America or Africa or the Middle East, and in specific, policy areas such as, for example, international security. It's a program that has sent its graduates off to private sector positions, public sector positions, nonprofit positions. So a whole, a diverse group of professional, pursuits. A lot of our students have gone on to work for the federal government, the FBI, the CIA, the State Department, the National Security Agency, and a host of other, federal agencies. We've also had students who've gone into the nonprofit or charitable world, and a few students who have gone into private business as well and used the expertise they've gained here to make their way in the private sector. And we also have a good number of students who have gone on to do PhDs, usually but not always in political science, and have later become faculty members, and sometimes at some very good universities. So I got into political science because I was really fascinated by the research aspect. I'm really interested in understanding the dynamics of political processes. I'm particularly interested in how those things work out in the context of Latin America, which is where my parents grew up. And so the research to me is the core of my job, and what keeps me going and keeps me coming back. And so that is what I most love. But the other aspects I also enjoy. I mean, I enjoy my teaching quite a bit, and So it's also my advising responsibilities as director of the International Affairs Masters are also something that I like because it puts me in contact, in close contact with, very, very interesting students who are trying to make their way in the world, from the United States and also from a whole host of different countries, who are, entering a challenging and important stage in their lives and their lives. And so I have the chance to get to know them and to try to help them. And that's also a very gratifying part of my job. I currently am working on in two areas primarily. One of them is to look at differences in the size of government among countries. That is, and most importantly, how much do governments tax and spend as a percentage of national wealth? How big is their government relative to society as a whole, right? And what are the implications of those differences in government size for important variables like economic growth and job creation, and poverty and inequality. So that's what I've been working on primarily, but I have an abiding interest that goes back to my PhD dissertation on issues of land rights and property rights. And so I continue to work in that area. And in both of those topics, I focus primarily on Latin America. And so those things keep me busy. I was recently in Guatemala for 5 weeks conducting research on this size of government issue, and I'm actually leaving for Bolivia on Friday of this week. So, for another 5 weeks. So I've been very engaged in that size of government research project. But in the background, I've also been working on the land rights issue quite a bit. Uh, I'm a fanatical fly fisherman, and I do that whenever I can. I travel when possible to many different places. I've been to Brazil a couple of times for fly fishing. I've been to Alaska a few times, to Canada, to Slovenia, to Bolivia, to Argentina, to fish, and around here as well. So that's something that really consumes me, and so that along with my family life, and I also am a big griller and smoker. Those things, consume pretty much all of my free time. Uh, in terms of balancing work and other pursuits, it's challenging. I don't know if I have a great solution to it, but I get up really early, and I come to work, and I'm the first person here almost every day, except for the folks who clean the office, and I'm usually the last one to leave. So I don't know if that's a great way, and sometimes I'm here on Sundays as well. So I don't know if it's a great way to achieve work life balance, but that has been my approach, and I'm too old to change. Only that I thank you for your interest, and this has been a great opportunity to share, my experience at Missouri State with you guys.